What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Awakening World, our Wednesday night show. I am Love Coach Scott Katamas. Big emphasis on the Love Coach part because tonight it's going to be an evening of love coaching. Now, I want to acknowledge all of the people that are already in our Zoom room, and I see some of our favorite people, some of our closest Awakening World Global Peace Tribe family. And I'm really going to count on all of you to ask some questions. What are some of the relationship issues that are going on for you, and recognize that the majority of people watching this show are watching on Facebook. You know, through John and Summer Raymer, we go out to as many as 200 Facebook groups and pages. We're also on the Conscious Awakening Network and Alan Steinfeld's YouTube channel, Humanity Rising, Unify. So all the people watching those ways, well, they can't come into the Zoom room unless they join the Global Peace Tribe, which we encourage them to do, and then come into the Zoom room to ask the questions. But until people do that, we need you, our Global Peace Tribers that are in the Zoom room, to be honest, what are some of the parts of your life, the relationships that are challenging that you want support for? And so just know that if you say, hey, how do I talk to my teenage son? How do I manage my elderly parents? How do I manage my coworker or my sister? That you're actually probably speaking on behalf of other people watching who aren't going to have the ability to come in and ask those questions. Now, for those of you that are watching on all those other, ways, again, welcome. It's great to have you watching. And we want to invite you to actually come and join the Global Peace Tribe. It's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com. globalpeacetribe.com. When you do that, it's going to take you to this website, and you can learn all about it. You can learn all about the different shows that we do. And what you want to do is click where it says register for the new season. And that's going to take you to the registration page. And you're going to get right away, immediately, you're going to get the Zoom room links for all of our shows for the next 3 months. And we do 2 or 3 shows every week. Plus, we do a meditation every night at 6:30 p.m., an online meditation. So, for example, here's the show you're about to watch, an evening of love coaching, bring us your relationship challenges. And we've got with us Katrina Valancourt, who is the co-founder, along with myself, of the Love Coach Academy. Katrina is here with us right now. I'm looking at her. And we've got Corey Folsom, who's with us, who's a great love coach, who just wrote a brand new book all about it, and who is celebrating 10 years of a great relationship. And then just so you know, for example, on Saturday night, our show is going to be another collaboration with the Evolutionary Leaders Network. And we've got experts, leaders from all over the world joining us to help us understand codes for planetary awakening. And Omoshar will be back on Saturday night. He's been away for 3 weeks visiting his mom in England. And we also have Dr. Ivy Shadia, who's going to do a sound bath for us. So join the Global Peace Tribe. Come on in so that right away you can ask your relationship questions tonight. But I want to take a moment to introduce our other two wonderful love coaches, starting with one of my closest friends in the world, true forever family. This is Katrina Valancourt. She's absolute, as close can be in my life, and a brilliant coach and the creator of the Love Smart cards. So welcome, Katrina. It's good to have you back on a Global Peace Tribe show.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you as always. I love teaching with you. It's always inspiring and such a gift to be able to be of service to people who are struggling in their relationships and struggling with like, okay, somehow I'm blocking love. How do I release some layers? How do I let go of that? How do I look at my relationships in a different way, speak, listen, process in a different way in order to really open up the doors for love to shine in its fullest expression. So I'm really glad to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you too. And we've got Corey with us. And Corey's an old friend of ours. He's done the Love Coach Academy training and has gone off and just created a beautiful practice for himself. Welcome, Corey.
Hi there, Scott. Hi there, Katrina.
Now, what actually, to be honest, kind of inspired us to do this show was that Corey has a brand new book, and I want to get right to it. Tell us a little bit about your brand new book, Soul Statements, A Love Coach's Guide to Successful Communication. Now, we're hoping to sell some of these books tonight. The people who buy it, what are they going to get? What's this book all about for you?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This book is at its heart about clear communication. I described something in there called the courage to be clear. And there's all sorts of skills, mini skills that we can apply, we can learn to support clear and clean communication. And so it breaks it down into bite-sized pieces. There's lots of anecdotes to illustrate points from my own life. And I've spent 4.5 years writing it, and I couldn't be more happy and pleased with how it came out. And I was really guided by, I want to put in a ton of content that's just going to be actionable and help people. And it really started when I found myself saying some of the same things to various coaching clients in my practice. And I thought, wow, if I'm saying this again and again, I should write it down. Maybe I'll make a blog. And so I ended up hiring a writing coach. And she said, I think you've got a book, and encouraged me to expand it in different ways. So 4.5 years later, it's chock full of great stuff. Pretty much, I say all my best stuff, which is true. And also, all my best stuff is also in the moment working with someone too. It's just new stuff's coming up all the time.
Right. Well, it's great to have both of you with us, and we are going to take a lot of questions from the audience today. We always still do music. Omoshar has been our house musical artist, who's usually here on Wednesday nights, is in England with his mom, who's in hospice, so she's winding down. But he will be back, everybody, on Saturday night. And he did provide us with some pre-recorded videos. And I see that Eleanor and Ian are here, so I know there's going to be some dancing. Sylvia's here, so she's going to no doubt give us some visuals. And we'll get Lynn and Leaf and George and Susan and everybody else up. Roger moving and grooving and dancing, and Katrina, Corey move and groove to the music, hopefully. So we've got a quick little 4-minute song from Omoshar. And while we're playing, I really want to encourage people to give us some thoughts, some questions for us to tackle about relationships. And a big thank you to Susan and Eleanor Joy, who have already put something in there for us to work with. So that's awesome. Thank you very much. And we are now going to go through the power of pre-recorded video to our beloved Omar Shar, who, by the way, I've been staying in touch with while he's been gone. And he has said that it's been a little bit difficult, but it's been good for him to be with his mom. So anyway, here he is, our beloved Omar Shar, and I'm trying to open it. And son of a gun, it's not doing it the way that it's supposed to, but we are going to try another way. Here we go. Come on, open up. Well, every now and then that happens, that I'll have it on my desktop, I'll click it, and it just isn't opening. There we go. Got it.
Another dawn, another day. Innocent child coming your way. I've been wondering about my life. Oh yeah. Wondering about my state of mind. But then I heard, who is it for? If not for yourself, how do you feel? And why do you cry, 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 cry? Shooby-doo-wop. The sun is warming up my mind. Ocean breeze blows me away. And yet still, I've been wondering about my life. Oh yeah. Wondering who will take my place. But then I heard, who is it for? Not for yourself, how do you feel? And why do you cry, 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 cry? Who is it for? If not for yourself, how do you feel? And why do you cry, 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 Who is it for? If not for yourself, how do you feel? So come on, let's fly. Come on, let's fly.
We love Omar Shar, and we love Eleanor and Ian. Thank you for doing all the dancing. Of course, when I'm playing the video, we can't see you very large. And there's Sylvia with, there we go. What do you got for us tonight, Sylvia? Well, that's beautiful. Show us what you made.
There's the butterfly flying, and then there's the tie-dye heart and the hemp paper lotus.
Very
Beautiful.
cool.
Beautiful. All
Mm.
right. Thank you very much. And we'll certainly have more of Sylvia and Eleanor probably. And just want to say hello to everybody that's there. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. All right. I want to go to a little bit of definitions. And I'm going to start actually by just defining what's love coaching. And then I'd love to hear from Katrina and Corey what love coaching means to each of you. We'll have time maybe for one question, and then we'll do a meditation to help us really drop in. But people often ask me, well, what is love coaching? And what I like to say is this, that in traditional therapy, you're working with someone who has spent many, many years learning how to evaluate and diagnose what's wrong with you. And there certainly is value to that. But in love coaching, we don't believe that there's anything wrong with anyone. What's true is that life is challenging and relationships are really challenging. And so in love coaching, we embrace the humanity of our experience. We are spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience, and our relationships are hard. And we provide tools to help us see the divinity in ourselves and in each other. And to go from, in nonviolent communication, we would say from jackal to giraffe. I like to say from reptile brain to frontal lobe, or from reaction to responsive, however you want to frame it. How we can make that shift, because we get triggered, reptile brain takes over, jackal takes over. But there are ways and tools that we learn through these tools that Corey and Katrina and I love to share that help us to come back to center, come back and open our heart and see the divinity, see each other clearly, hear what's really going on with the other. So that's kind of my start. And I'm going to turn it over to the co-founder of Love Coach Academy, Katrina, for anything you want to add.
Sure. And thank you, Scott. I really love the introduction that you created around love coaching. It's definitely the way I view the human experience is that we are emanations of the same divine energy. And so that divine blueprint is what we are. And then we get trapped into this human form and forget our divine nature. And instead, we're not treated like we're divine beings. We're told things that give us ideas that we're somehow not good enough, or we're stupid, or all of this conditioning comes on top of our experience of being in the human form. And that conditioning can create limitations in our availability to love, to giving and receiving and knowing ourselves as love. And so love coaching is about gently peeling back those layers, really staying in that seat of, I see the beauty in you, and I love who you are, and I see the struggle, I see the conditioning, I see that shared humanity. I have that too. So another thing about love coaching is when you're in a traditional dynamic with a therapist, they don't share anything about their own lives, their own challenges. And so there's a bit of like, okay, they're the authority and you are the patient. In the way I do love coaching, when it's appropriate, I will share something from my own experience to let you know, like, I'm right there with you. I feel the struggle with you. My inner child went through difficulties as well. I hold and honor the tender places in you with care. Let's bring more love in so that those hurt parts can be freed up. And in doing that, you gain more freedom to love from the nature of who you naturally are already. So we're seeking to free that up. And very practically speaking, I do a lot of relationship mediation work. And so I will hold space for two people who are in conflict with each other. And, we have to work in the material world. We may be divine beings, but we are here in this material world, and there are conflicts that arise. And so I really create a safe container so that each person can express what is on their heart that needs to be heard. And then we make sure that that person feels heard, both by me as the coach and also by their partner. And we do that, of course, in both directions as we weave a deeper and deeper understanding of each other. And with that, there's a heart resonance that happens. There's a coming together that happens. There is a compassionate understanding that cultivates, and that's where the magic happens. That's where solutions begin to arise. No matter what the conflict is, solutions begin to arise from that place. So it is remembering our divinity, and it is working with the nature of being in this material reality where we do have conflict, we have differences, we have preferences, and so we're looking to see how do we work that out in the highest win-win way possible as a way of life. How do we bring that to the relationship? So that's what I would add.
Beautifully stated. I love you so much. Do you guys see what
Love you too.
All right, Corey, I know we've kind of taken up a lot of the things you might say, but I'm curious what you'd like to add, or kind of your take on your style of love coaching.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. No, everything that was said was so perfect and spot on. And I was just thinking, just to add that, one of the things I learned from you, Scott, was that when we are feeling poorly, oftentimes it's when we forget just how lovable we are. And if we can return to that, maybe we have a certain way we remind ourselves of that, something we say, and so that helps a bunch. And Katrina mentioned solutions, and once we can soften our hearts, and oftentimes that happens by feeling understood, and oftentimes feeling understood comes after offering understanding to another person. So if both people feel understood, they can soften, and then the conversation, or at least the internal conversation, might be, oh, what am I willing to offer? The idea is to get to a more undefended place where we're actually returning to the reason we're drawn to each other to begin with, and what we actually do cherish about one another. And so it's getting beyond that surface circumstance and the surface story, and being curious about the other person, and having each person feel heard.
Beautiful. All right, well, we have time for one question, and then we're going to do our meditation. And this is from Susan. And thank you, Susan, for being the first person to ask a question. And it's a good question that I think a lot of the audience watching on Facebook can probably relate to. She writes, I'm a person who is just out of a 30-year relationship with children. How does one find a new partner with big filters so that I feel safe? And I'd love for both of you to kind of respond to that, and then I might add something. But
I love the question. It sounds very vulnerable. 30 years is a long time to be with someone. And then to be on your own after that is such a shift in reality. So the first thing that I would recommend is really building a deep relationship to yourself, really going into discovering who you are, what lights you up, what do you long for, what makes life beautiful, what are your preferences, like really get to know who you are in the way that you would want a partner to get to know you. Become so curious and interested in the essence of your being. Because when you start from that foundation, then you're coming to a place of like, wow, I really love who I am, and I know who I am, and I know that I'm worthy of love. And that's the foundation that will create the energy that will attract a partner that can also bring that to you, right? You might have seen before when you have two rods that can play a tone. If it's the same vibration, then you just hit one and the other one vibrates with it. So what we want to do is to be able to create the resonance that we're seeking to attract. So that is that really creating that relationship to yourself first. And then when you said you have big filters, as a love coach, I'd want to understand what does that mean? So that's an area I'd be seeking to explore. If I were your coach, I would likely have some kind of journaling exercise that we could really understand what does that mean, and then work with that. If the filters are perhaps thoughts that are limiting your relationship to yourself or to life in some way, then we want to start to peel those back and see, how have those thoughts served you? And is there a way that we might release ones that don't serve you anymore and replace them with new thoughts that really do serve the kind of life and love that you're looking to create? So those are the first two pieces that come to mind for me when I hear your question. And I'm also holding the vision for you to attract in the perfect partner who sees your heart, loves you, honors you, and celebrates you.
Beautiful. That's awesome. I'm going to go to Corey, and I happen to know that Corey is mentioned a 10-year relationship, but it's not your first relationship, and you also went through, your hoops before finding a really healthy, mature love. So, what do you want to share and offer to Susan?
Sure. Well, firstly, I just want to acknowledge Katrina for her amazing approach. And what came up for me was, I thought about how, it's up to each of us to set the tone of how we expect to be treated. And so spending some time, alone time, whatever feeds your spirit, just do that, whether that's, jogging or working out in the gym, or just sitting in front of an altar, or communing at a side of a river. But just do what feeds your spirit, and just get really grounded in your worth, as Katrina mentioned, and your worthiness. And I would also add to develop trust in your voice, that you'll use your ability to use your voice to speak for your heart, to protect your heart. And so when we practice that kind of ability, we practice it, it grows. We speak up when something is feeling awkward, maybe a little earlier. And that way you don't have to make up as many stories about what might be or what might not be, and you can just speak up and ask. And so I'm a big fan of speaking up.
Beautiful. Thank you. And we've gotten some comments from Susan, who had originally asked that question. So we'll get back to that. But it is time for our evening meditation. And for the past few weeks, we've had this wonderful practice of every night at 6:30 p.m. we do a meditation, and it's offered by a member of the Twin Ray community. And it just so happens that not only is Katrina a brilliant love coach, she's also a miracle mentee, part of the Twin Ray community. And so I've asked her to lead tonight's meditation, which of course is going to actually dovetail perfectly into the awakening world. And I want to welcome all of the people watching that are coming in from the Twin Ray meditation side of things, and want to invite you to just stay with us and enjoy the Awakening World show that's happening tonight, which is dedicated to love coaching and relationships. And if you actually have relationship questions, we can even get to some of your questions as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Katrina to lead tonight's meditation.
Thank you, Scott, and welcome to everyone in the beloved community who has joined us here on the Awakening World. And as we drop into this meditation, I'm going to be playing some music in the background from one of my favorite instrumental musicians, Raphael. The first song is Communion, and the second is Remembrance. Altogether, it will be, there's 16 minutes for these songs to complete. So this will be a relatively short guided meditation to drop you into your heart and to have you really explore areas in which your relationships are alive in you, where you might be wanting to upgrade some quality of connection in your life. And so with that, let's begin. And so I'm going to invite you to just take a deep breath in and releasing with sound. This breath in with a release of sound helps us to relax the body, to release whatever has been happening in your day up until this moment so that you can drop in to the gift of this present moment. So let's take another deep breath in. And allow your breath to just go to its natural rhythm. You can do this if you'd like with your eyes open, or if you'd like to focus more deeply within, it can be very helpful to close your eyes. Feeling the natural rhythm of your breath. Notice if your breath is short or long. If it's shallow, just in your upper chest, or deep. Notice if there's expansion in your chest, your lower rib cage, perhaps even in your abdomen. So you bring your full attention to the experience of breathing. Feel the air as it enters your body. Notice the transition between your in-breath and your out-breath, between your out-breath and your in-breath. See if your awareness can catch that space between the inhalation and the exhalation. Bringing your full presence to this full experience of breathing. And at times in this meditation, I will purposefully go silent for a little while so that you can fully drop into your own experience. And as you're breathing, become conscious of your body. Feel the support of the seat beneath you. And perhaps you might feel the energy within your body. Perhaps you might feel a central column of light from your base all the way through to your crown. And whether or not you feel this energy, I invite you to bring in the power of imagination As your eyes move towards the 12 o'clock position, I invite you to connect with an energy high above, the high holy heart that is our divine birthplace. Feel a cord of light that connects you to this place that is always your home. And perhaps you might feel something like a Amrita, a honey, divine nectar, coming down from this high holy heart, down through the crown of your head, into your body, washing over you and filling you with love. And from your base, from your perineum, I invite you to imagine roots that move from your body, energetic roots that reach down into the earth, down, 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 touching the core of Pachamama, Gaia, the heart of the earth. This is the mother of our physical form, she who gives us life. Feel your body receiving nourishment, just as a tree receives nourishment from their roots so that they may grow and prosper. Feel the nourishment of Pachamama entering into your body and throughout your being. And bringing your attention to your own sacred heart. The abode of love and wisdom that lives within you. Feel the blessing of this energy center. Feel the energy of the high holy heart and the heart of the earth, Pachamama Gaia, meeting here in this sacred abode at the core of your being, giving you life. Feel this holy vessel where the light of spirit and the gift of material matter, earth, come together to give you this gift of life. As you feel this sacred abode within your heart, I invite you to recognize that this abode, this sacred place, is a place that connects us all. This energy, this frequency of the heart is shared by all sentient beings and beyond. I invite you to become present to how expansive you are when you are in connection to all that is through this sacred abode. With every breath in, breathing in the love that is all around you. And with every exhale, sending love to the places where it's needed most. And now we move from the collective heart into awareness of our personal connections. And with that, I invite you to connect with those you consider your soul family. Your mother, your father, any siblings, extended family, dear friends, your beloved, your children, perhaps communities where you go, wow, this is my home here. Feeling those connections. Feeling the gift of relationship. And as you scan all of these beautiful connections and see the faces of your many beloveds, perhaps you might notice that some are aglow and you're like, oh, I just love you. I feel that so deeply. I'm celebrating this. Perhaps there's other faces that feel like they're more faded and you're like, oh, I remember the love we once shared. And I recognize there's been some kind of a loss, some kind of a breakdown of that love. I invite you to focus on one of those beings. Someone in your life where there has been some kind of a loss, something happened. You might not even know what it is, but there's some kind of a loss. And as you do, feel into your body. How does that feel as you tune into this person? And allow your mind to share with you whatever it thinks the problem might have been. What happened? Was there something you did that you know caused a rift? Is there a desire to make amends? there an impact this person had on you? And you just couldn't find your way through it and back to connection. And just notice what your mind has to say about this connection. Perhaps your mind has said, oh, it's a waste of time, I've tried. And if that's what your mind is saying, I will suggest that is a limiting belief. And it's a wonderful opportunity to bring that question, what are the impossible situations? Let's see how we can bring some levity to those connections in our time together today. Perhaps there were needs that weren't met. Perhaps you didn't feel fully seen, heard, or understood. Maybe your need for respect wasn't met. Or for ease. Or maybe there's some people who just drifted and there's really nothing wrong. You just haven't reached out. And maybe this meditation is reminding you, it's time to reach out. I invite you to take this love that's in your heart and hold a vision of what you see could be possible. And let's send that vision up to the high holy heart, down into Mother Earth, out into the collective field. Asking for healing and grace. And with that prayer, we also surrender. And I love the affirmation and prayer to the divine, to the all-knowing one. My will and thy will are one. Always thy will be done. May the highest love prevail. And so it is.
Oh, thank you so much for that incredibly beautiful prayer. And again, a big welcome. I see Sylvia is enjoying it, and Eleanor and Ian and Corey. And there's Pat. And of course, and Roger and Bonnie, so many of our beautiful friends. And also just again, want to acknowledge all of our friends who are tuned in through the Twin Ray meditation. And Twin Ray meditation friends, you are more than welcome to continue to watch this way or come on into our Zoom room. And again, I'm just going to remind people one more time of how people can come and join the Global Peace Tribe. It's easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and click register for the new season. That'll then take you to our registration page. And we're going to be going on for about another 45 minutes to an hour, answering relationship questions. So again, just there's our, every night we do a meditation. This is the show you're watching tonight. This is the show that'll happen on Saturday night. And then you just click register now, and you will get the Zoom room links for all of our shows for the next 3 months. So please do come join the Global Peace Tribe. And I'm going to go right into some of the other questions that came in. And if I go back, Eleanor Joy wrote, Ian and I, and Eleanor Joy and Ian, you're right there. They're the people that always dance to Omar Shar's music. We love you guys. Oh, I'm going to put the spotlight on you while I'm reading what you had to say. Eleanor wrote, Ian and I want to practice healthy communication skills when the proverbial SHIT hits the fan. We haven't done it yet, but have the intention to do so. Any tips? So it's a great question. I think everybody can relate to it. I'm going to go to Corey this time first. Corey, what are some of your tips for healthy communication skills when things get difficult?
Yeah. A lot of what makes the difference is what we tell ourselves on the inside, what we maybe make something mean. And so sometimes I'll hear myself repeating some unhelpful message and I'll say, oh yeah, I remember that's what I think at these times. And let me actually get curious about the other person. Because, the other person didn't have your history, your family, your challenges, your body, your gender, perhaps, all these different things. And so, of course, they're not going to act or react the same as you would or I would in any given situation. So I found it really helpful. The more I can be curious, that allows for space to maybe learn something, learn a new perspective that I wasn't seeing and go, oh, of course, it's understandable. They might think that or say that. I'm glad we cleared that up. Now we can acknowledge that and, go from there as kind of a springboard to more connection.
Beautiful. That's absolutely right on. Katrina, what would you like to offer?
I would like to offer some tools. This is the practice worksheet that I like to give my clients who ask, like, well, what do I do? Just a basic practice. So this first sheet here is just a reminder of a number of things. I don't want to go too much into it because I could spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about this. I'll let your mind work on it and see the value you find here. The next resource is just looking at communication choices. So you can start to identify, am I making communication choices that are coming from a closed-hearted protective place? Or am I making communication choices that are adding to open-hearted connection? So this is a bit of a self-assessment tool. Both of these sheets, I see people print them out and put them on their refrigerator or somewhere in the house so that they can look at them regularly. And then the next one is the connected timeouts. And this is something that Scott created. And so I've created the design for this one, but I want to make sure Scott gets credit for this because it's so important. If things are escalating, if you're having a difficult conversation, you just start to escalate and it's going downhill and it's like, well, okay, this is not going well. It's so important to pause and say, if it's not going well, let's not do this right now. And so this is an instruction sheet on how you can set up connected timeouts in advance so that you can catch things as they start going downhill and you take a break and then you go on to the worksheet. This is a long version of the worksheet that goes with my Love Smart cards. You can also use words lists if you don't have the Love Smart cards. So the words list are used with this, and you'll see little cues in terms of which one to use. So you're then doing a process where you identify what's actually going on for me. What am I feeling? What am I needing? What am I longing for? What character strengths might I be able to bring to this challenge? And you can do that for yourself, and you can imagine, what do I think my partner's going through? So all of these words support this worksheet. And then this one above it also is in support of that worksheet. So if you print all these out and put them together, it will give you a practice you can do at home that when you really put this practice in regularly, it will transform your relationship. Those conversations will end up bringing forth a clarity of the heart that deepens a sense of connection between the two of you and gives you a new model of communication so that you're immediately practicing some of those things. Like Corey said, how can I really seek to understand you? And when I provide understanding, then it's easier for you to provide understanding for me. And again, that's where the magic happens. So those worksheets are designed to support that magic. And I'm putting that link in the chat. So anybody who's here in the Zoom room can click on the link that I just put in the chat, and it will give you all 12 pages. Feel free to download those, to use those, to share those. If you are joining us from Facebook, you can write an email to me. You can write to connect@lovesmartcards.com and just say, please send me the link. I'll know what you're talking about. I'll put that link in there for you. And then, of course, I also offer consultations. So if you're interested in a 45-minute session to just dive in and see what's possible with a deeper dive, you could let me know via that same email, and I'd be happy to explore that with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all those gifts. I was like scrambling and pulling off my computer and putting into, oh, here's Colorphobia.
I got it.
Here's that one. Yeah, but one link serves all. So we'll get to another question in a moment, but I did want to just kind of remind that when things get difficult, slow down, slow down. And the timeouts sheet that Katrina showed you is all about how to call a yellow light, let's connect, yellow light, let's slow down. But if you take a look, if you were to watch a video of any fight or argument you've ever had that was unpleasant, I promise you'll see people speeding up, not slowing down. And when we speed up, our reptile brain takes over and we go into reactivity. And again, we want to learn how to respond, not react. So slowing down is always the most important thing. Sylvia asked a really good question. I'm going to read that one, and then we'll hear what Corey and Katrina have to say about it. Sylvia's question is, in this material reality, how do you all address balance of power issues related to financial inequity, which is common? You know, let's say the husband makes more money and has more power because of inherently controlling the purse strings. And that's a pretty common challenge. Who would like to tackle that one? And Katrina is smiling, so I'm going to go to Katrina first.
All right.
Possibly relate.
Yeah, well, so thank you for the question. And I think that that's a question everybody has had a challenge with at some point or another, if not in most of the duration in their lives. And they could have the challenge from either angle. They could be the person who has less financial resource and some level of maybe a financial dependency on a partner or a family member or an employer. Or they could be in the other direction where they have a level of abundance and they have somebody else who is in some way financially dependent on them. And then that creates a like, okay, how much do I really feel like I can give that feels right to me? And how do I assess that? Like both directions can be a difficult place to negotiate. And so, you know, of course, in an employment situation, there's an agreement about your employment. There's an agreement about how much you make. So it's a bit more cut and dry. If it doesn't work for you, then you end the employment agreement. In a relationship, it's different. And what I recommend is, of course, finding where both of you come together and say, yes, this is what feels good. Recognizing that could change over time. It might be a conversation that gets revisited. So in this dynamic, you know, in a mediation, I would invite each person to express what's really on their heart as it relates to the dynamic of money and power. And we would let one person speak and share some amount of what's on their heart, and then reflect back so that they feel deeply heard and held in whatever their experience is, again, by me and by their partner. And then the other person has an opportunity to share also what's on their heart and have that same experience of being heard deeply by me and by their partner. There isn't a cookie cutter solution. It's not like I could say, here's the formula and we can apply that across the board to all these relationships. Every relationship is unique. The considerations of the individuals will be unique in every relationship. So it's really about tuning into each of those partners and helping them build a bridge of understanding to each other that will help them find where their sweet spot is in terms of navigating the differences in around finances and power. A
Beautiful.
second place to go is in personal responsibility. And that is, if you feel you don't have enough power or you don't have enough abundance, how can you simply generate more of that without it being dependent on another person providing anything for you, right? So if you're looking to this person to provide it, can you instead find another solution that you can use to build up more power or more abundance for yourself? So those are the two angles that I would be exploring as a coach with you.
Beautiful. We'll go to you in a second, Corey, but I just want to kind of broaden it a little bit, that in all relationships, and it's funny because I was just working with a couple just before this show where we talked about this, mutuality. It's really important that all relationships, at least adult romantic relationships, there's a sense of mutuality. And like Katrina said, every relationship is different because we have different values, we have different needs. But it's really good to just periodically check in with your partner and say, does this feel equal? Does this feel like what I'm providing you is of equal value? Not tit for tat, not you paid $5, I'm going to pay $5. But the qualities I bring to the relationship, do they feel like equal measure to what you're providing? And to self-reflect on that, because honestly, obviously, most people that come to me for relationship support or come to Katrina or Corey, it's because they're struggling. And most relationships that are struggling, one or usually even both parties feel like it's not mutual. It's gone out of balance. I'm giving more than I'm getting back. And so we have to keep checking in on the mutuality of how the exchange is feeling to people. I know we all want to fantasize that relationships are unconditional. Well, most mothers have unconditional love for their children, but most adult relationships are not unconditional love, at least not for many, many years. It is transactional, and there does need to be a sense of balance and a sense of mutuality. So I just wanted to add that piece, and I'm eager to hear what Corey has to say.
Sure. I always love hearing you speak, Scott. You have so much wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that the transactional was something I had in my mind too. And to have that, to just echo a little bit about what you said to start off, just to have that conversation about how balanced or unbalanced each person feels, maybe what each person feels they're bringing to the togetherness. And maybe before you have that conversation, you spend some alone time, whether journaling or contemplating what you bring, your worth, your worthiness, your contribution, your light, your insight. There's all sorts of ways to contribute. And so when you start to ponder, oh, this is how I bring my energy and my light, if you can start to see how, oh, the scale is measured not just by income, but by a bunch of factors. And I think it's maybe as part of that conversation, it might be helpful to ask the other person, what do you value about me? What do you love about me? And just see what they have to say. And ideally, it's about what we're bringing. And versus, in my book, I say, are we bringing or are we clinging? And so it's just a whole larger galaxy of things that we can bring. And also I see in the masculine feminine dynamic, much of the time the masculine, they think that they're attracted to someone's form, but most of the time, if you get right down to it, it's their light. They like being around a certain person because of their light that they shine. So.
Well, that's a beautiful, beautiful point. Thank you for that. And I think especially for our audience, because our audience is a very Awakening World, Global Peace Tribe, Twin Ray audience. And I think the majority of people watching recognize that relationship, all of our relationships, are opportunity for spiritual growth. It's, it's the wonderful ways that we can really grow spiritually, and challenging ways that we grow spiritually for sure. So, okay, we've got some other questions coming in. Dorina Joy down in Ecuador writes, thank you for sharing all that you did. My question is about boundaries. We hear so often the phrase healthy boundaries. How do we get to define what those are for everyone when it is so personal, subjective, and dynamic? And also, how does one enforce them successfully without being egoistic or too pleasing? Now, I want to say this is an entire show. Katrina and I have done entire 2-hour classes together on how to set boundaries with compassion. So it's a big one. I'm actually going to do just a little quick version of what I like to share and then turn over to Corey and Katrina. 2 quick things. First off, whenever we're setting a boundary, always remember to lead with authentic reassurance that you care. I'm going to say it again. When you're setting a boundary or you're saying no, lead with authentic reassurance that you care about that person. Because often we have trouble setting a boundary because we're afraid that they're going to think we don't care about them. Or the flip side of it, the other person hears our boundary as a lack of care. You don't have to change your boundary or say yes to something that's a no, but find within you, what about this relationship is important to you? What about this relationship with this person do I care about? And lead with that to reestablish a sense of connection. The other thing I want to say is it's always good to make a boundary sandwich. And I just gave you the first piece of the sandwich. That first piece of bread, if you will, is reassurance that you care. Then in the middle of the sandwich is you set the boundary and you explain why. You share why you're setting the boundary. You're saying no to the request because you're saying yes to something else inside of you. And then the third part of the sandwich, the other piece of bread, if you will, is being present to their disappointment or their uncomfortable feelings. Give them the gift of acknowledging that they're disappointed or they're hurt or they're angry. And that's important because that's a way we show care. Because usually if we're setting a boundary or we're saying no, there is going to be uncomfortable feelings for the other person. And we don't use that as a guilt trip to change our decision, but we give them the gift of care. So that's the boundary sandwich. And I'm going to swing over to my Global Peace Tribe partners and my Love Coach Academy co-founder, Katrina first.
All right. One of the pieces that I really loved in your question was how does one enforce them successfully without being egotistical? And I imagine you mean like without being overly forceful or like mean inside of holding a boundary, versus the other end, which is to be pleasing, like, oh, maybe I don't have to hold the boundary because you don't like it. And women, we have been so many of us have been conditioned to make the people around us happy at the expense of ourselves. And so I wanted to just express appreciation for that question because of that tendency, which I've certainly had in my life on both ends. So when setting a boundary, one of the alerts that we have that we need to have a boundary is that anger arises. Anger is referred by Carla McLaren says that anger is the noble sentry. She wrote The Art of Emotional Intelligence. Anger is the noble sentry. It's looking out for what works and doesn't work for you. It's a signal something's not working. In itself, it naturally generates a boundary. Unchecked, it will unconsciously either cause you to just withdraw or cause you to explode. Those would be the unconscious ways of dealing with it. So the first piece is just notice, I have anger arising in me. And it doesn't have to be like big anger. It could be frustration. It could be annoyance. It could be a low grade, but pay attention. What's that about? What need of yours isn't met? Is there a particular behavior that isn't working? Pay attention to it. And you could just simply, if it's a small thing, you could just say, ouch. I noticed that when you said this, it didn't feel good for me. It's kind of a gentle boundary. Or there could be a stronger boundary, which is, I just heard you use this derogatory name to describe me, and that's not okay. I actually don't want to have anyone in my life who calls me that name. And if I hear it another time, I might exit your life entirely because it's that important to me. That would be a very strong boundary. Of course, Scott put in the love sandwich. If you have a really strong boundary, it may not be a love sandwich. It may just be like, that was such a violation. I need to really hold myself, and I'm not holding you anymore. And yet in a committed relationship, there's a lot that we value and we do care. And so in that kind of thing, if it's like, oh, wow, you just called me this name and I don't want that in my life, and yet I love you, then there's still the boundary of that doesn't work for me and I love you. And I need to ask you, are you willing to remove that from your vocabulary when talking to me? Because it's so hurtful that I actually consider exiting the relationship if I think that that will be a part of it. So the anger, when you really go into it, can help you gain clarity as to what the boundary is that you need to place. And then it's really, can you honor yourself? Can you say, this is so important to me that I'm not going to just let somebody treat me in that way that stimulates anger? Am I going to stand up and say, I deserve better, and I know that you can bring better here? And I love you, and I love us, and I want this to be a better relationship. Right? That way there's a boundary that also creates an invitation for the love to go to a higher place than it's been, for the unconscious conditioning of the past that might create name calling. And I'm just using that as an example because it's the first one off the top of my head. To reduce that old unconscious conditioning so that the relationship can go into a higher state of awareness, a higher state of attunement, and a higher state of love and harmony.
Beautiful.
Again, yeah, like a 3-hour topic. So I hope
It's a big one.
that piece is helpful to you.
Let's give Corey a shot at it, though. And beautiful. Thank you so much. Corey, what do you want to share or add?
Well, I would add to speak not so much to speak to what this boundary is supporting. The boundary is a strategy, and there's a universal need that I have. And this boundary is a way for me to protect myself or get that need, support that need of mine. And so, and to kind of share the impact or the just I'm afraid of this, or I'm concerned about that, or this is something I don't want to experience. And so, or or I need a certain amount of rest, whatever it may be. And so I love that, what Katrina said about just affirming what's good and true. I am deeply in love with you, or I really care about you and the way we relate with each other. And I'm wanting to protect myself in this way. And so that's how I tend to word things. And so what you're trying not to do is point a finger. You're not asking to be fixed. Sometimes you might say, I just want to express a boundary I have right now, and I'm not asking, or I have anger, I'm not asking to be fixed. And you just hearing it is helpful. And so that way you're letting the other person know that, what's not required of them. You're not needing a big conversation, but you just need to share what's up with you. And another thing I was thinking of too is sometimes couples especially find it really helpful to jot down some things in a neutral time when they're both interested in learning about one another in order to, love better. So a list with a heading like, this would be nice. I would like this to experience this now and then. And then these other things, this other, say, column on the list are things that I must have. I must have this in my life. And maybe there's a third column with this I won't have. So those kind of conversations, they don't necessarily, it's not like in the moment, you're going to try to work out a sticky spot by doing that. But you might do that as part of just a setup when times are more mellow.
It's interesting what you just said, because that leads to the next question that came in, Corey. So I'm going to bring Katrina back up. And our dear friend, Deborah Robin, also known as Dayara, asks, can you speak about yellow or red flags of potential compatibility issues? I used to think that any disagreement or contrary preference was surmountable. I know you somewhat addressed this while I was typing. Please feel free to repeat. I'm eager to learn and to love. She's thanking me for addressing mutuality and reciprocity. But are there just some red flags that, we should say, no, this is, no matter how far we're in, maybe this doesn't work? And it's a good question. So Katrina first and then Corey.
Sure. Of course, all of these questions are ultimately subjective. So with each of the questions, I wish I could explore with the person asking the question, because I know that then we could go deeper into what is alive for you as it relates to the question. Having said that, one of the exercises I like to encourage my clients to do when they're looking at relationship, especially when they're single and they're like, I want to create a really great relationship, is to define what is that. And so there's 3 lists I will encourage them to work on. And one of the lists is, what are the qualities that are must-haves for me? What's necessary? Like if it's not there, it's not a match. And so oftentimes these are character strengths, and still it's a subjective evaluation. Does this person show love, kindness, caring, attunement, sensitivity? Are they a high-level communicator? What's their relationship to their ex-partners? Like that's one of the ways that you can see all of those character strengths. And how do they hold the people who they've dated in the past? Do they still have relationships with those people? For some people, that might be a deal breaker. For others, it's like, oh, I'm really glad that you have a good quality relationship with people in the past. So again, there's subjectivity to it. And it's great to make a list of what are the things that you absolutely want in the relationship. Then you can do, what are the would be nice. Maybe you like to go out ballroom dancing, you like hiking, photography, those kinds of things go in that list. And the third list are your deal breakers. So generally the deal breakers are, I don't want to be with somebody who has drug or alcohol addictions. Perhaps it is, I don't want to be with somebody who smokes or has body odor that they don't manage or doesn't manage their finances. So, really take time and consider what are all of the things that would be deal breakers for you. And you can also look at previous relationships, like what had you go, no, this isn't the relationship for me, and see, is there something there that you might add to that list? One of the influences in my life is the Baha'i faith. This was a religion that I really dove into in my early 20s. And the wisdom I learned from, one of the pieces of wisdom I learned from that faith is that when you're looking at partnering with someone, you want to cultivate your own character. Again, be the kind of person that you want to attract, and also investigate the character of that other person. And it's not how do they show up when life is good and there's no stress and you're in new relationship energy. It is, how does that person show up when there are breakdowns, when stress is high, when there are big problems? Because that's where the red flags will show up, if there are any. You'll see them when that person is really under stress and duress. And one way that you might explore that together is to take on a community service project together, something where you have to partner and you're looking to create an outcome, something where, you're putting the relationship under some kind of stress by having a shared project. So that's what I would encourage somebody to explore in advance if they're looking for red flags before committing to a relationship. Once you're in the relationship, again, it's like, okay, how many times do I feel like I have to make a boundary? And if you're making a lot of boundaries, you probably need some love coaching to see, you make too many boundaries, there's a lot of distance. And so you want to have a sense of connection. So love coaching might help you soften boundaries in a way that's a genuine yes for both people. And if ultimately you've been working with a coach or therapist or somebody who's really skilled at helping you come together, and you still have anger arising on a regular basis, that might be a red flag for you. And that's something that, you'd really need to discover over time with the support of somebody who could hold you through the challenges that arise and help you bring harmony to the relationship as much as possible before saying, it is a red flag, I'm throwing in the towel.
Beautiful. Great stuff. Thank you. And Dara is saying thank you very much. Corey, what do you want to share on this one?
Well, gosh, that's it was just such a comprehensive and thoughtful answer that Katrina gave. I was just thinking, just from what she was talking about, I know, I'll give an example of a friend of mine. He is partnered with someone, but he also has a very, he's very interested in his tango dancing, and she's not interested in that. And so he has a dance partner that he just tango dances with. And so, he has a galaxy of friends, as it were. So not everyone has to be everything for everyone. It's somewhat of an impossible task. So I think it's okay to do different things with different people at different levels. But supporting that would be qualities like integrity and honesty, forthrightness, kindness. And as Katrina was saying, kindness matters in those moments of tension and conflict. And so that's a better time to judge how someone can go to kindness when it's most difficult versus just when times are easy. So that's we need those those times of tension to be a better judge of what someone is capable of, what you yourself are capable of or not capable of. And so that's that just comes from doing different things and having different experiences.
Mm.
Yeah. And of course, the one of the number one skills would just to be able to be present to your own needs and to be able to use your voice in support of whatever those needs are.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, of course, everybody is different. And I think that it's really important just to get in touch with what are your values, what are the other person's values. Everything that Corey and Katrina have said is true. Past relationship history is really important. And how do you manage differences? How do you problem solve is huge. I also will add that I do think that as we get older, having a shared spiritual life, it's not essential, but it's highly valuable. Because, I recognize a lot of people who watch the show are older, because I'm older. And I'm in my last act. I'm in the third act of my 3-act play. And some of the other people watching are either approaching their third act or in the third act. And in the third act, that's when everything comes together. It's when we kind of really take everything we've learned and we integrate it into a spiritual experience, into a spiritual understanding. And so for those of us that are older, I do think either someone that you share a spiritual practice with, or at the very least, someone who is supportive of your spiritual practice, meditation, yoga, playing a musical instrument, a religion. So I just wanted to add that piece. Okay, we are winding down. We've got time for one more question. I'm actually pulled this one from off of Facebook. I went into the Facebook page, or some of the Facebook pages. There's a lot of them. We're on about 170 today. But somebody asked about relationships with siblings, especially adult siblings, where you still, even though you're adults now, you're still replaying some of the drama that you cultivated as children or as teenagers. So any tips for our adult sibling relationships? And again, I'll start with Katrina.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a lot of ease with my older brother, but my younger sister and I had some funky dynamics from our early childhood that followed us into adulthood. And so it's really the same principle that you would use with anyone. The difference is you have a shared upbringing. You were in the house together. You were maybe competing for your parents' attention in different, unconscious ways, because children are just doing whatever they need to do to get love, attention, and affection from their parents. And oftentimes there can be a competitiveness. And so that was one of the dynamics that happened with my sister. And as an adult, I was able to look back on some of the ways that I behaved growing up. My sister's 3 years younger than me. And I looked at things that I did to her that I was like, oh, God, that was mean. That was just, I'd like pinch her and she'd scream and say, I was Tina at the time, Tina pinched me. And I'd say, no, I didn't. It's that kind of thing that would happen. And so as an adult, I said, my sister, I said, I love you. And when I think about our past, I recognize there were times that I was not loving to you as your big sister. And I have some memories of that are heavy on my heart because it doesn't match how much I care for you. And so that was my way of acknowledging the pain of the past and acknowledging that I had impact on her and opening the door for a bigger conversation where she could express memories that she had and the impact that I had on her, which, it wasn't all negative. In the course of that conversation, she shared things that it was like, yeah, this hurt. But, I was kind of sometimes an obnoxious little sister, so I kind of get it too, so it softened over time, but it gave her an opportunity to say it hurt. And thank you for saying that. And then to reach forward and say, there were also some really beautiful things that happened. And opening up that conversation and really expressing to her the pain that I had over the way I'd treated her in her childhood or any other point in our life. I could scan our entire connection and look to see, where did my actions fall short of being a loving sister?
Mm.
It opened the door for healing and reconciliation to happen. And my sister and I are closer than ever. Over the years, it's just gotten closer and closer. So at this point, she's like a best friend for me. And so I don't know what the situation is for you. I'd love to really explore specifically what's going on for you in relationship to a sibling or multiple siblings, so that we could start to create a strategy for opening up a conversation that might have the potential for that kind of healing.
Beautiful. Thank you. And a reminder that you can reach Katrina. What's the easiest way to reach you, Katrina? Because this is somebody on Facebook. So you gotta
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So my website is lovesmartcards.com, and my email is connect@lovesmartcards.com. And feel free to reach out to me. I do offer consultation sessions for people who are really interested in coaching work. But even if it's like, okay, I'm not totally interested in coaching work, but I could use one session because I could really use help here. If I can fit that into my schedule, I'm happy to do that with you. So connect@lovesmartcards.com is my email. And then the website, lovesmartcards.com.
Great.
And if you scroll down, then you can actually see the cards are right there. There's four decks of cards in the set. They're an emotional intelligence training tool. And when you practice, this is how I taught myself nonviolent communication 17 years ago. I was doing this and sharing it with my son, who at the time was 9 years old. It had a complete transformational experience with my son in the course of just a half hour when I first made the cards and tried playing a game with him. And it was so stunning that I shared the cards with other people, and it eventually it became a product and a business, of course. So these cards will support you in building habits of emotional intelligence, including empathy. You'll become very good at listening to another person and reflecting back to them in a way where they feel deeply heard and understood. It also supports practices of gratitude and character development, conflict resolution, and emotional resiliency, self-resourcing and emotional resiliency. So the 12 pages that I showed you before also have a worksheet, and it's color-coded with those decks of cards. So you can use the cards with that worksheet. That practice, again, it's just going to train your system to build habits that will serve you in your life and all of your relationships for the rest of your life. And you can also, if cards are not your thing, you can use those words lists. I know for myself, the cards are just far preferable to words lists, because when you look at one word at a time, you can feel a resonance in your body. Does this word happiness, does that resonate with me right now? Anxiety, does that resonate with me right now? Am I longing for a connection, to be seen, heard, understood? Does that resonate with me right now? So that's the tool, and very powerful one. And so you can find me at that website or through the email, and I would love to hear from you, love to connect.
Beautiful. Well, Corey, and thank you. We'll come back to Katrina one last time. Corey, is there anything you want to offer on the siblings?
Sure. I loved Katrina's formula with owning her part and reaching out to her sister. That was a really beautiful resolution. What I was thinking was, I'm just thinking to my family and all, and that each conversation you might have with a sibling isn't necessarily a chance to solve another unresolved, piece or bit of the history. You don't want to necessarily say, oh, we're going to resolve this thing now, if they're not bought into that, if they're not in agreement with that. And so I think there's a lot of healing can come by just letting things be and just meet them with what's alive for them in that moment, and just be in present time. And also when a person's owning their part, oh, well, this is what I did, and that was, poor behavior, that hopefully there's the expectation that you're owning your part and expressing that in order to be more clean, in order to support love, without an expectation that they are going to respond in a certain way. But you're really doing that as your own spiritual cleansing, your own spiritual growth. And so we can open the door, but it's up to the other person to decide to walk through that door. So
Beautiful. And actually, there is one more that just came in, so we're going to go to it. And that is a question about relationship to God, and recognize that we can use that. But, we talked about relationships, but we haven't talked about the most important relationship, which is a relationship, you can call it to the inner self or to the source, to God. We recognize that we have many, many different names for it. So Katrina, and then Corey, and then I'll say something about that. What about that relationship?
That relationship is the very essence of our being. It's our whole reason for being. Like, none of this would be here without a divine source from which it could arise. And yet, being in the human form, there can be so much pain and suffering and conditioning. The mind can argue that God's not here for me, source is not here for me, spirit's not here for me, it doesn't even exist. If God were really here, I wouldn't have had this experience when I was a child. This thing wouldn't have happened. This thing would happen. If God were here, this thing would happen. There's so many games that the mind can create. And yet the most ecstatic practice I know is to cultivate a connection with that source of love. I recently heard somebody talking about their own experience of going through 12-step. And in 12-step, it's so important to create a relationship to God. The creator of the 12-step program recognized that it was only through that deep relationship to some kind of higher power or source that people could find the power to overcome the grip of addiction. And so as this person was talking about his experience of going through 12-step, he was like, well, how do I create a relationship with God? And the answer that came to him was a bit of a fake it till you make it. Just pretend that God is here all the time. God is watching you always. God is here to love, serve, and support you always. If God were watching you in this moment, what would you do? How would you behave? Right? Are you going to, take out the trash? Are you going to let someone else do it? Are you going to, if you toss something in the trash can and it misses, you're going to pick it up and put it back in there? You're going to let someone else do it. If you are in connection with another person and an argument starts to escalate, are you going to let it keep escalating out of control? Or are you going to pause and say, I'd like to change the pattern, right? So if God is actually here watching us, then what would we want to show God in terms of our time here on earth? And that practice alone, that walking meditation, can cultivate an increasingly visceral experience that God is here. So my take on our relationship to God is, let's cultivate it. Let's practice it. Let's build it. Let's celebrate together. that this relationship is where we can fill our own being so that our cup is overflowing to also be of service in this world. So very important. Let's do it.
Yeah, I was all done to kind of wrap up, but then when we got that question, it's just too important. So thank you very much to Francesca for asking it. Corey, what do you want to say about our relationship to that which has many names? We can call it God, source. What do you like to call it or think of it as?
Oh, I say God. I also say source. And the thing is that if we're still enough and quiet enough, we can feel God. And it's not kind of a hit or miss in that sometime if a person was to say, oh, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to sit here and meditate for however long, I mean, God is available. It's just the only question is how available are we to that, to experiencing that energy, that the ecstasy of God is always available. The quiet, sure, protective knowing is always available. The only question is, are we going to make ourselves available to it? And so, the answers are in your center, and there's an internal sanctuary where, down inside of us, where we have that self-assurance, we feel connected to God, and that intimacy with oneself and with the cosmos, it's always available. It's just, and we can all benefit. I can benefit from dropping in more often, and that's just an ongoing relationship.
Beautiful. Well, while we've got Corey up one last time, I want to just remind people that Corey has a wonderful new book out, which is what really kind of was our inspiration for doing the show tonight. And it's called Soul Statements, a Love Coach's Guide to Successful Communication. It's available on Amazon.com. You can find it there. And again, you can also go to Corey's website and find all things Corey. So I want to say one last thing about relationship to God, and that is that just because of the nature of my coaching and my practice in my life, I help people through hard times. And I just learned that when you're going through a hard time, a divorce, the death of a loved one, even the death of a fur family member, as I point to my dog, if we have a practice, it makes a really big difference. And I've said it before today, but I just want to say it again. If you have a practice, do it more. If you don't have a practice, cultivate a practice. And again, a practice can be a religious doctrine, but it can also be playing a musical instrument, meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, martial arts. There's a lot of different ways to, as Corey said, connect, to really, find our way of feeling that connection. And it is a very good use of time. And as somebody who's a workaholic and isn't so good about taking the time to do that, I'm preaching to myself as much as I am to anybody who's watching. So I do want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Katrina and Corey for joining us and sharing so much wisdom. Whoops, Corey got a lot older real fast. No, it's George Noble. Hey, George. I meant to bring up Corey, and I brought up our dear friend George, who was just recently with us. It was great to have you with us in Ashland, George. Anyway, thank you everybody for being with us. Join us on Saturday night. Oma Shar will be back. So Eleanor and Ian, get your dancing shoes ready for Oma Shar Live. And I'm going to bring on Sylvia and Eleanor Joy, and I'm going to go to Gallery View. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you on Saturday night, or remember every night at 6:30 for our twin room meditations. Nice, Sylvia, thank you.
Prayers and blessings and love, everyone.
What a perfect way to close. Thank you